In this video, we are going to be replacing the motor for the fan of the outdoor unit here that does all the hard lifting of getting the heat out of the coolant and making everything cooler inside the house. So this video is a continuation of the HVAC series I've been working on, coming from an inspection I had done last fall in 2023 of this unit that came with the house when it was built in 2009. We've been here since 2015. So it's about 15 years old, and it's nearing end of life. So that technician gave us a list of things that needed to be fixed or maintained on the unit, and he recommended replacing the entire unit. And that list was actually pretty extensive and expensive if you had somebody else do it, but there's a lot of things you can DIY yourself. So one of the things that needs to be done is replace that fan motor, like I said, and we're doing that today. The reason for that is it's drawing about 0.55 amps, and it's rated for only up to 0.50 amps, so it's aging out and it's pulling more power than it's supposed to, so it's time to replace it. Before we do any disassembly, just taking a look at the unit. First, when we turned it off, we saw that the fan was turning in this direction, the clockwise direction, so when we put the new one in, it should be doing exactly the same thing. There are 4 acorn nuts here on the top we're going to loosen and then remove. And then there's this conduit here, and that's where the wiring runs from the motor down into the side. And then all the electronics, of course, are behind this panel, all the electrical connections, and so we'll be pulling the electric out from there. So how do you know what the motor is that's in here so you know how to get the right one? Well, it's pretty, yeah, it's upside down in the video, and you have to move the camera around a little bit, but you can take a picture of the label right on the side of the motor. You can get the part number, the information of the motor. I know you can't read it, but it's a 1/12 horsepower motor, and it's a 0.50 amps, and we've got the part number. We can go look it up that way. If you can't find the label on the motor, or you can't read it anymore, that's okay. You can go to any appliance parts website, and if you put in the model number for the entire unit, for example, mine's a Carrier, you can put in the model number, and you'll have all the parts, the major parts that you can purchase, and that includes the fan motor. And I'll leave a link in the video description for the particular one that I'm using, which is the replacement for this model. So obviously, not exactly going to be applicable to everybody, but there are also universal motors. So 1/12 horsepower, 0.5 amp for an example. You can get a universal one, but the one I'm getting is actually going to be specific for this model, so I don't have to worry about making sure it's turning in the right direction, all that stuff. It should be just plug and play. Before we get started, we want to make sure we put all of our power inhibits in place. I went inside, and this is the upstairs unit. I set the thermostat for the upstairs unit to off, so there's not even a 5-volt signal coming in. I don't think that's actually mandatory, but no power coming out here to outside is always a good thing. So we went ahead and did that. I'm going to turn off power outside to the unit by flipping that switch. I'm also going to pull the power here for the upstairs unit because it's right behind me. I don't want that to come on while we're recording the video. You could also do this at your panel inside your house if you'd rather, but the key thing is to turn off the power to the unit. With the power turned off, the next thing is to get access to all the wiring and the power equipment on the unit. It's usually on one of the corners. There's a small panel that you just need to take off. It's usually a 1/4 inch or 5/16 inch socket. Mine's 5/16 inch. And for me, I just need to remove 2 bottom of the fasteners and loosen the 2 top ones, and the panel cover will just slide right off. With that panel off, I'll take my multimeter, set it to AC voltage, 200 AC volts on my meter, and touch both the bottom and the top connection points on the contactor. It's really the bottom ones where it's getting power directly from the house. That should be 0 volts, but just check them both, and in this case, they're all 0. I know that it's safe. There's no power coming into the unit, so now I can start taking things apart. So next thing to start looking at is getting the fan motor out of your unit. And for some units, you have to remove the complete cover across the whole top, and that would be by removing all of these bolts or fasteners all around the edge. This particular Carrier unit has a grill on the top that is separate, so I'm thinking that I can just remove the grill, and then obviously we'll take the fan with it, and hopefully I can get an arm in and disconnect the wiring and pull the wiring out. I don't have to remove this entire top. Removing the top is not a big deal. It should come off pretty easily, but it's a little bit of a wrestling match to get it installed later. So I would say if you can avoid having to do that, then it'd be better. So I'm going to try to take this grill off first. Before we talk about pulling the motor out of the overall unit, first we want to take a look at these 4 acorn nuts on the top. I'm going to go ahead and loosen these so that it's nice and secure and tight inside the unit. We don't have to worry about it. If they're stuck a little bit or something, we can work on it here instead of having to do it on the ground. So we'll loosen these just so to get the torque loose, and then we'll take the whole unit out of the bigger air conditioning unit. All right, so now I'm going to try lifting the fan out, see how far out I can get it with the wiring that it might be a little bit taut in there, and see if I can set it to the side. All right, I got it set aside a little bit, and you can see I've got a black, brown, and yellow wire coming out here, and we go underneath. You can see the same wires right there. They're running down there. They meet up with the wiring from the condenser, and then they go, or the compressor, sorry, and then they go out to the other side. And there is the hole that they come through, and you can see they're bundled up here with a zip tie. So I will just cut the zip tie, and that should give me some slack, and then I can keep moving the fan motor out and away from the unit. Since we are messing with the connection to the capacitor, one other safing thing we want to do is just make sure the capacitor is fully discharged by taking a screwdriver, hold on to the insulated handle, and just touch across the leads of the capacitor just to make sure it's fully discharged. And before I started disconnecting any wires, I took pictures of each of the 3 wires and where they go so that I know exactly where to put the wires for the new fan back. One thing about this carrier unit is it has this little wire keeper here, and you can see the compressor wires are still inside there. I already took the fan wires out, but if you have something like that or something else restraining the wires, you're going to need to clear that out. But now the wires can come inside here, and then we should be able to pull the unit away. All right, so I moved the fan, motor, everything into the garage because it's Carbon's DIY garage. We got to do something in the garage. One of the things I want to check before I start taking things apart is the distance from the where the motor connects to this grill to the bottom of the fan blades, because the fan blades need to be in the same spot relative to the air conditioning unit, relative to the compressor and everything as it previously was. So just a poor man's way of doing it. I've got a flat thing, so it's a piece of styrofoam. Just lay it up there and then take a measurement from the base of the motor. And I don't have a level. I'm not going to be that perfect, but it's around 7 inches from the base to top of where the fan blades are, because the fan blades are right at the top here of the shaft on this unit. So I want this part of the fan blade to be 7 inches from the base when I go put it on the new motor, and we'll double check that to make sure that that's how it gets set up. So again, every unit is different. This particular carrier unit has a conduit that protects the wires so that they don't get caught up in the fan blades. And a lot of units will have something like this. How it's attached is different. This one, it's pressed onto a little coupling on the motor actually. So you just twist it and pull it off and pull it completely off the wires. So this new motor is supposed to be a direct replacement for the original from the factory. But let's just double check all the important measurements. So we see the rotation direction on the old one, a 5 microfarad, 370 volt AC capacitor, 800 RPMs, 1/12 horsepower. Let's go over and look at the new one. You can see it's 1/14, 1/12 horsepower, 800 RPMs, 5 microfarad, 370 volt AC. Rotation direction's the same. So these should be exactly the same performance. And now you just hope that the new one fits in the same spot, but it should. It's supposed to. To make this a little bit less cumbersome to work with, I'm going to take the fan off of the grate now. Just remove those 4 acorn nuts. You'll probably have to hold things a little awkwardly just to get it all taken off, but it should come off pretty easily. The next part is to remove the fan blade, and this is known to be pretty tricky, and it may not just easily come right off, but we'll try the first thing first, and we'll just loosen the set screw using a crescent wrench and see if we can lift the fan blade off. I'm expecting not, but we'll give it a try. let's try lifting up on the fan blade to see if it comes off. And I am shocked that it just came right off. So I was all prepared to do a whole bunch of other things. I expected to need to push, get it loose or something, twist the fan blade just to get it to spin, to break free, push it down on the blade, on the motor shaft, do some sanding. There's a bunch of videos out there on tips and tricks you can use if you have trouble getting the fan blade off. I would say mine is an exception. So I'm super glad it just came off, but kind of disappointed I don't get to show you any specific tips and tricks that I use to make this work. But yay, we got the fan blade off.
Your old motor will have small open weep holes on the face of the motor that points to the ground. Your new motor might have rubber plugs in its weep holes. Remove the rubber plugs in the new motor so that it matches the old motor. Usually the holes facing the ground should be unplugged.
Just showing you on the new motor, you can see that there's a flat on the shaft of the motor. That is where the set screw is going to push up against. So when you put the fan blades back on, make sure that obviously it's in the same orientation, pointing in the same direction, but then make sure that that set screw is going to hit up against this ledge. To start with, I'm going to put the blades back on the shaft, line it up so that the top of the blade boss there is right at the top of the shaft, just like it was on the old one. Just lightly tighten it to hold it in place and see if that 7-inch measurement is the same or if I need to adjust it. And it looks like it's right at that 7-inch mark as well, so I'm just going to go ahead and tighten down that set screw, get it just as tight as it was before. You don't want to, Superman it and put a hole all the way through the shaft or anything like that, but get it good and tight. You do not want these blades coming off because you had the set screw too loose. I will go ahead and put the grate back on top of the motor, and hopefully those acorn nuts will be exactly the same size and fit on just fine, and get those tightened down, and then we'll be ready to put the conduit back on the wires, and then we can take it back out to the unit outside the garage. All right, now that we're back over by the outdoor unit, I'm going to go ahead and fish those wires through to get them right where the compressor wires as well, and get them to where I can plug them in. With the wires fished through like that, I can go ahead and put the top back on and screw it back down. And then of course that piece of conduit's got to go inside the hole where the wires are right now. So I don't know if you can see inside there, but obviously the wires, leaving them just like that would be a bad idea because they could get pulled up into the fan blade when it's running. We don't want that. Can't really see, but I did snake it through that keeper, and so now all we have to do is go to the other side and pull those wires tight, and you should see no more slack out here. So now we'll go connect our wires after consulting the pictures that we took earlier and get the 3 wires connected. And then once that's done, it's just a matter of, again, pulling them taut and zip tying them in place. And on my particular panel, I've actually got a little bump out that I can run a zip tie through, just like it was before, get it all nice and tidy. And now we'll just put the panel back on. Then we'll go inside, turn the thermostat back on, and then give it some power and see if it works. Okay, it is time for the moment of truth. The thermostat is on inside the house. Temperature set super low, so this should kick on right away. Remember, we want the fan to turn in a clockwise direction as soon as we apply power. So here we go. So we've done a successful repair. Well, it's not really a repair. It wasn't broken. It was running at 0.55 amps according to the tech. It's supposed to be running no more than 0.5. I don't have an amp meter, like I said earlier. So I can't really tell you what it's running at now. Probably around 0.35, 0.4, something like that, since it's brand new. Hey, if you want to contribute to the channel, maybe that's the next thing I can get. Next tool will be an amp meter to help me with the HVAC repairs. But you can do that through Super Thanks or buymeacoffee.com. But if this video's been helpful in some way, just give it a thumbs up because that'll really help the channel out. But I hope the video is helpful. And if you have any comments, drop them below. And links to everything and more information is in the video description. And that's about it. So until the next video, y'all take care. Have a good one, and thanks for watching.